Welcome back to a brand new coffee tech break with Jan. Good to see you back on my channel again. I think I got another great video for you lined up because I want to take you through a brand new version 4.1.2 for StudioX and G7500, and I think a really exciting one. There are some maintenance updates for different video applications. There are some new features, but I'm gonna walk it all through in this video. And what I also will do is I will create chapters. So if you need to skip through the different pieces, specifically to Teams, specifically to Zoom, you're able to do that. Now, as usual, I got to all my sources, so I consolidated the presentation with the whole summary on what is in 4.1 with complete tips and tricks from the field. If you got any questions or comments, just put them under the video and I will make sure I try to answer them as good as possible. Also, all the references or anything I'm talking about, I will make sure you got those links in the comments. So just check that out and you're able to review that. Now, I don't want to hold you off anymore. Let's just jump into the 4.1.2 release and get a cup of coffee and make sure you are ready. All right, let's get started. Again, if you need to pause to get some coffee, do it now because it's going to be quite an exciting ride together about the 4.1.2. A really exciting release. So as I said, we got maintenance updates on those different video applications. We got some new features. I'm going to take you all through that with this presentation. Now, first off, in the basis, trying to create a sort of baseline, look at the hardware. So we have X series, StudioX, and we got the G7500. So those devices have different hardware capabilities. As you see right here, you got like dual monitor, touch support, AirPlay mirrorcast, the HDMI ingest, automatic framing. You got all those capabilities, you got them in there. But just to be aware that depending on the application, it's able to use some of those features. So always check that when you are using one of the StudioX series and you're going to use it for a specific video application, and check if the capabilities are supported or if you need additional licenses for some of those capabilities. So that's the hardware capabilities. As you can see, it's fully featured with functionality in the StudioX. Now, on top of that, we got PolyOS. That's the operating system. That's completely locked down operating system. There's nothing you can do there. There's no Google Play, so you cannot install anything. It's just only running the video application that is required. Now, that was 8.0, and with the latest release, we brought that to Android 10. Now, why is that Android 10? Because it's always behind in what's available in the market for general phones. So this is an appliance operating system. So it's not, it doesn't need to be the latest and greatest. No, it's always behind because everything that they found and find in issues or security issues, they're backported into the Android 10. So this is why the appliance version is always a bit behind in version, but that is no problem because we're just using the application. So as a user experience, you don't see any difference. That's the PolyOS operating system. Now, on top of that, we got the different video applications. So you got Teams, you got Zoom, you got Ring Central, Google Meet, which was just added in one of the latest versions. So really nice. You just run some of those specific applications. And what you will see during the video is that you can even update specifically some of those applications if needed. So you can upgrade the PolyOS operating system as one operating system, which will include usually the latest applications that we will receive. We'll put them in there, but during the time of development, it could be that one of those video providers already has some updates. So then you're able to just push specifically that application from those platforms. But you will see how that looks like during this video. Also, as a baseline, upgrade and downgrade. I think these are really important before you continue with anything. How do you upgrade your Studio X device? Now, the first thing, if you just have a couple of devices, you can use the web interface. So the web interface is reachable through the network. Just use a browser. You connect to the Studio X. Default is admin and the last 6 digits of the password. You go to the device management, and what you will see is you will see if it found any new software, you should be able to see it. Now, in this case, in the drop-down menu, I put it to Polycom support site. And that means it will point directly to Polycom. If you put it in the Teams mode, for example, it will say here Teams. So you will have to go into the drop down, put it into Poly if you directly want to upgrade from the Poly side, and otherwise it will ask you to upgrade from Teams Admin Center, which of course is also possible. Now, what I always recommend is that you upgrade not only the Studio X, but also upgrade your TC8 or TC10, and that's usually paired with the device, so it should come along, but make sure that it is upgraded. And I will talk more about the TC8 and TC10 during this video. Now, one of the things that I always want to highlight is automatic updates, because I just discourage that. I would say just check if there's any new version from me, for example. Just look on my channel, a regular, when there are some good updates, I will try to push them, and I will bring you up to date. And I always say just throttle it, just do a couple of devices, test them out, see how they work in your environment, etc. So I don't recommend automatic upgrades, because you want to have everything in the hand. If there is anything found in your specific environment, you can still roll back and get back in versions, as it maybe give some compatibility issues. But if you roll out through automatic updates, then your whole environment is impacted. So I will say just throttle this, make sure you upgrade step by step different departments. And in overall, I recommend just a sort of staging environment. Get a sort of test, lab, production, and just different ways to test them out, and make sure you can find out if you're going to get newer software, because there's also there's sometimes beta programs. You can go ahead and test ahead of software. It's also a possibility. That would be great, of course, in lab, and then you can provide feedback on those new functionalities. Now, the next option is USB upgrade. That means a field engineer can come in, they have the USB stick, and they can put it into the Studio X, and it will upgrade. It will upgrade both the Studio X and the TC8 and TC10, which is connected. But usually for the field engineers, this is just a quick way to get the device up and running with the latest version. Now, you see here also PolyLens, and this is where I will jump into a bit later on, because the software is not available anymore on the Poly support side. It's all been transferred to PolyLens. So this is your centralized repository now, but I will show you that. I think it also makes sense, because PolyLens is that centralized view of your environment. So it makes sense to get the software also there. The next one is PolyLens. I think even if you just have a couple of devices, it is an interesting one, because if you are within the main versions like version 4, you can upgrade and downgrade in case needed. This is really nice if you want to build staging environment and you want to be able to test different versions, then I think Lens is a really nice one. So you can remotely access the devices, because it will connect from the inside, from Studio X to this platform, so you don't have to set up any VPN to connect specifically to the devices, to the browser, etc. No, you can do that all centrally through PolyLens. So I will talk about that more later on and show you that that software repository which is available there. Now, then we got Teams Admin Center. You can also use Teams Admin Center, of course, for your software upgrades. There's no downgrade option. This is only specifically for PolyLens, but through Teams Admin Center, you can upgrade it. And make sure you always upgrade Studio X and the TC8 and TC10 all together. So these are compatible with each other. And what you will see during the video is that Microsoft has some new functionality built into the latest Teams app, which will help you with that. And finally, we got Zoom device management. Of course, if you're using it in Zoom, same thing, you can upgrade your devices using that portal. So the next one is where I'm getting always a lot of questions about what versions are running on which device. So I made an overview here, so you got a quick snapshot of what is running on which device. So with the 412 deployed via the web interface or via the PolyLens or via USB stick, what comes along with this version? So for the Studio X and G7500, we got version 412. And similar you will see on the TC10 and on the TC8, G7500. Now in this package bundled is the 182 for the E70 and the maintenance release, and similar the one is also bundled for the X70. And so make sure that the camera inside the X70 has been upgraded also to the 182. Now looking at specific builds, because this is also where I get questions about this. So what specific build is running, and usually the build can be different between the TC8 and the Studio X series, as you see right here. The TC10 and the TC8 have the same build, so that is easy to identify. But for Studio X, make sure you got those builds as you see right here when you upgrade. So if needed, just pause the video, create a quick snapshot, so you have this available when you go on site to review all those different versions. The next one, upgrade routes. So this is where I always get a lot of questions about. So my best practices, guidelines from the field, I put them in there. So I got a couple of scenarios here. If you run into upgrade scenario to make sure you follow the right path. Now, if you got some devices running on the 3.x, so that can be an X30, X50 or an X70, not an X52. X52 has been delivered now with the 4.x release, so you don't have to bother about 3.x. It's just one of the older version, and including of course the G7500 that could also have a 3.x version. Now to get from that 3.x to that 4.1.x release, you cannot just upgrade like that, because if you go from 3.8 you go to 4.1, anything could happen. You gotta make sure that you are on a base release on the 3.x. Now what are those steps? So you go from the 3.x, you go to the 3.2.3, the step in 3, then you go to 3.7 or 3.8, and then you're gonna move to that final destination, the 3.41 or 3.42. And later on in this video I will show you some options how to upgrade to all those different versions in between, because you can do that with custom links in the custom update tool, but also you can use PolyLens. And the PolyLens in the drop down menu you can select different versions, and there you can also upgrade doing using those paths. So you gotta be on 3.41 or 3.42, then you are eligible to upgrade to the latest release. So get on that baseline. It's a one-way route. That's very important. You cannot go back when you are upgrading to the 412, which means Android 10. You cannot go back to that Android 8 release. So this will be a one-way route. Also your factory image, so when you do a pin reset, etc., you will be going to the 412 as a base. You don't go back to the 3.x version. Now, if you got your Studio X's upgraded, they are all based on Android 10. Touch panels, TC8, TC10 are based on Android 11. Just to be aware of that, because I know you can create policies in Teams Admin Center using Intune. And if you're using Intune, you can do that based on the operating system. So be aware that if you upgrade to that 4.1.2 release, your TC8 and TC10 is gonna be based on Android 11. Now another upgrade route, if you are already on a 4.x release like 401, 402, and then you're already on Android 10, you can of course safely upgrade to that 412 release. You can even go two directions, so you can upgrade, but if you need to downgrade because there is some incompatibility, you can always go back in versions if needed. So you got a green light. So StudioX again is on Android 10, and the TC8 and TC10, just be aware of that, are based on Android 11. Now let me give you a downgrade example. For example, here I got my StudioX hooked up to PolyLens, which is running a 4.1 release. I need to downgrade to 402. Well, in PolyLens you can select specific version, set here the 402, and what you will see is in the web interface of your StudioX it will prompt you to install the 402. So as I said, you can always go backwards if needed. Now, what is not possible, that if you're running a 4.x release, you want to go back to version 3, it will prompt you that a compatible software update has not been found. So that should not be possible. If for some reason that happens, it could be that your device is not working anymore, because if you're going to upgrade from that 3.x to the 4.x, also some chips inside the StudioX are upgraded to be compatible with Android 10. So if you then go back to that 3.x version, this could lead to all kinds of issues. So make sure if you're on version 4, just stay on version 4. Now, one that is good as a reminder, there is a new download URL. So in case you're looking for new software and it says it cannot find any software, just be aware that there was a change, and that was happening in the 3.14.2. And so that is good to know. The new URL is swupdate.lens.poly.com. This is the new URL. So if you got any firewall configured with a previous software download URL, you got to check if this is the right URL. Here is where it's able to grab it. If you're using custom URLs, and here you see the example for the 412, and then you put your download from to custom, you copy and paste this URL in there, and then it will also try to download the software. And then this is the whole URL. But I will talk about it later, because this is not only for this version, but you can like downgrade or upgrade to any version and by using those custom URLs. But I will show you that in a bit. Now, as I said, if for some reason you upgraded from 3.x, you upgraded to the 4.x, could happen maybe through USB stick, maybe it passed through the security check, etc. Just factory reset the device. Use the reset all if you can still access the web interface. If not, just use the pin reset. So if you upgrade to that 4.x release, that factory image will also get that new release. So after the upgrade, if anything happens, just do the pin reset. But in overall, you need to reconfigure the device, get the password set again, get your tracking again. And now, if you got policies in PolyLens, of course you can push a policy again to the device, so that will have most of the settings. But just to be aware that you need to reconfigure it. All right, now an important one. So keep your eyes open, because here is where some things has changed. And if needed, just pause and get a cup of coffee to stay on track. So what has happened? So the Poly support site, which hosted release notes, it hosted software packages, etc. That has all been changed. It's all moved now to PolyLens. So if you need to do some custom upgrades, which I usually do a lot for demonstrations, to quick up set up the device, or if you got an older device from the cupboard, you can use that option custom URL. Now, you put in that URL, as you see right here, you put that here in the update server address. Now, if you come from older versions, 3.12, 3.8, etc., you gotta make those steps to that 3.14.1 or 3.42 as the baseline. Now, all the software is hosted now on PolyLens platform, and I will show you that in a bit. But what is important is you can create this URL, and the first part is completely the same, but you can construct the URL by looking at in PolyLens at the version. So the main version, version 4.1 for example, and here you see the build 3.8.2.263, and after that you put in the build, so the main version and the build. If you use that, you can construct easily the whole URL, and this is for every version and the build within the PolyLens, which you can see here, and then you can easily do the custom upgrade. Of course, you can also fully hook up the device in PolyLens and go in the drop-down menu and select them one by one. That's also a possibility. But if you want to do it quickly, you don't have the time to completely integrate, etc., you can also use those custom URL. And especially for me, for quick demonstrations, or for field engineers, they need to quickly upgrade and they don't have always the time to completely build up lens, etc., and they just want to use those custom URLs. So that is a possibility to use. Now, one thing, this is also an important one, is the TC8. So if you've upgraded your Studio X to that latest version, 4.1, and you found that TC8 still in the cupboard, not TC10, but TC8, you found it in the cupboard. TC10, you cannot upgrade TC10 directly from a 3.x version to the 4.1.2. That is not possible. You need to make the step 4.0.2. You need to make that step in between. There's a URL available, a knowledge base article, which will give you some specific URLs where you can upgrade TC8 specifically first to the 4.0.2 release. But I will show you that. And so, as usual, let me jump out and show you some details on the Poly support side. So as you will see and read here on the message, Poly support site is being closed. You need to create a support account, you need to get a lens account for software, etc. And so anything you do here, if I click for example on products, you will be redirected to the HP site, and you found here the different subject very nicely, so it should be easy to find, but just to be aware. Download apps and software. So if you need to find your Lens desktop app software for Mac, for Windows, for your mobile, your web app, for the Google Chrome, or your Room app, which is coming soon. So I will do a video on that as soon as it is available. That is the Teams Room application, where you can manage your USB devices. So that is all available on the HP side. Also the community, if you need to find out some knowledge base articles about TC8 for example, TC8 upgrade, all that knowledge is now inside the HP community, as you see right here. So you can look for all the information there now. Also the support, if you need to contact support, make sure you can create an account now on the support side. So if there is any issue that you're able to escalate through the support side. So everything has been moved. Now, one important item is the software. The software is now on PolyLens. So you will also see a message here at the top. Device software is now available in Lens, but where can you find it? So you go to Manage, you go to Software Version. This is a brand new section. Now, let me, for example, search for Studio USB. And so there could be that you want to search for a specific version for the provisioning or for the Lens desktop. And here you go. You got here the different versions to download. Now, another thing is that on the way down, you will find the reference here to the release notes on docs.poly.com. All available. Now, I'm looking, for example, for Studio X30. So if we're going to look for Studio X30, here you go. So you got all the 4.1 versions, and you got here also some of the 3.x versions, which you're able to download, or you can build your custom URL or integrate it with PolyLens, and then you can just select it from the drop down menu. Now, with X30, you see that it can go back to version 3. But if I search, for example, for X52, that one was not based, of course, on a version 3. So you will see that there is no version 3 for X52. You cannot, of course, go backwards in version 3. So with X52, you're mostly safe. You can just upgrade to the latest version and you're completely up to date. Now, again, you will find the release notes, but go all the way down. You will find here the reference. So if I click on that, it will automatically go to docs.poly.com. And here you will find the release notes, but also all the release notes if needed. And so I think it's a really good one, docs.poly.com. And here you will find a lot of that information. Now, one thing which I mentioned is if you already upgraded your Studio X, but you found an older TC8 which is still running the 3.x version, and I will put this URL in the comments, and you will go down and here you will find all those URLs completely constructed in combination with the version and the build. But a nice one is, here you go, if your TC8 is higher than 3.11, you can use those versions here. If the version is under 3.11, your 3.8, you can use these URLs as you see right here, and this will bring your TC8 first to the 402. And again, here all the way below, you will find more versions of that with the codec running the 402, and if your codec is running 4.1. Now, all right, let's get back to the presentation because there's a lot of good stuff there and I don't want to miss out, and I'm trying to keep it still and within 1 or 2 coffees. Highlights, so PolyLens, your software repository, now HP support site. If you need to escalate tickets, make sure you get an account there. Release notes, docs.poly.com. So just to find your way around with all those new locations. All right, some new innovations. So this is one where people with the X30 and X50 will probably be waiting for. People framing is now available with the 412 on those devices. This is a sort of preview feature, but at least there is some movements that you're able to try it out and test it on your device. Now, for people who don't know what is people framing, we got a couple of tracking options on those devices. So we have group framing. Group framing makes sure that everybody in that meeting room is visible, and if some participants leave the room, and then they're able to, the camera will reframe and make sure that everybody who's still sitting there will be visible in the frame. Now we got speaker framing. Speaker framing, it will automatically move to that speaker in the room. So not always show the group, will specifically go to the speaker. Then we got presenter tracking. So presenter tracking is really on the fly a presenter, which is as follows. You need to be max 3 meters from the device, etc. This is specifically for the educational market, an interesting one, and not available on all devices. Now we got on X30 and X50 also the people framing. And what does people framing? It will grab the participants in the room and put them in their own frame. So this is one video image, but it will make sure that everybody is equal in that frame. Now, I don't know the X30 and X50 how many people the people framing will do, so I would just say just try it out. Most of the other devices do 6 today, so it will grab 6 participants max. If you are with more than 6 participants, it will fall back to group framing. So I would say just try it out. And of course you can combine it with Parameter AI. And Parameter AI means that you can, if you got that glass around your meeting room and people are standing outside that meeting room, that you're able to avoid being tracked with tracking functionality. So I think this is a really nice one. But I will jump deeper into the Parameter AI in one of the next slides. So this is available now as a preview feature on the X30 and X50. I think a really nice one for current customers who are using the X30 and X50 devices. Now, one of those tips and tricks, so if you're using the people framing functionality, I would say put the workspace lighting under the video settings, put that to conference mode. And that means it will set the most optimal settings, looking at lighting, camera settings for your devices, and will give you that best results with the people framing functionality. Now, another great innovation is speaker loudness. So you can really drive the speakers now to the max. So if you are in that bigger room, you need to give it a little bit more loudness. That is possible now. And it will find that optimal balance between the bass and the treble. I think a really, really nice one. I played around with it and it really helps. It really beefs up that audio. And so as usual, I just recommend to just try it out in your environment if it's needed. It is a feature which you can find in the web interface. Enable speaker boost. It is just a tick in the box, and as soon as you enable it, you don't have to like restart or anything. You immediately will hear that extra boost in the audio. All right, let me quickly show you where you can find this feature on the X52 and the X70. So here we are with the Studio X52 web interface. Let me sign in here. All right, so we can go to the audio video section. We go to audio. Now there's one other thing, and let me go downwards. So usually the bass and the treble is 0 out of the box. Now, to beef it a little bit, what I usually do is I put the bass to 2, same for the X70, and also the treble to 2. And just try it out in your environment. That could already help it to beef up the audio a little bit. Now, if you really want to boost it, and with the loudness, here you will find that enable speaker boost functionality, and here you can enable that. But again, I would say just try it out in your environment, because every room acoustic is different, and see if that helps to beef up that sound for your meeting room. All right, what more innovations do we have? So with the 4.1.2 release, there's also now been provided the option where you can select the audio output on the G7500. So by default, the audio is set to the HDMI speaker. So it's using the audio channel within HDMI to get the audio out. If you set it to line out, you will use the 3.5mm output port to go to an amplifier and probably go to speakers. Now you can also set it to both. So now you can set the audio using the speakers, maybe built into the screen, and you can use the line out the G7500 to amplify the audio into the meeting room. Now, just to be aware, after you upgrade to 4.1.2, just check if it's not defaults to that HDMI. So if you got the 3.5mm port connected to your amplifier, it could be after the upgrade that you don't hear any audio. So just to be aware of that. That could happen. I've seen that a couple of times, that it defaults to the HDMI speaker. So just one of those tips and tricks which I've seen in the field. So just go into the web interface or PolyOS and make sure you set it to the 3.5mm output there, or you set it to both if you want to use the speakers in the screen and you want to use that in combination with the 3.5mm output port. Now, the next one was already introduced in the previous version, and that was the scheduled auto restart. But with the 4.1.2 what is being included now is a reboot of the TC8 and the TC10. And so also the accessoires which are connected and paired to the device. I think a really, really nice one. And that makes sure that in the morning, when you start using the device, and it is cleaned up, memory is cleaned up, application has been restarted, so you can really start fresh in the morning using your device. And what is also important, this restart has also been introduced now in the Teams app. So a bit later in this video, I will show you that, because that will automatically be enabled to do daily restart. But you can turn it off if you don't want it, but it's now automatically enabled. Don't use both. So don't set it in the PolyOS here, using the web interface, and use it in Teams, because that could conflict with each other. If you're going to use it in Teams, just leave it in Teams and don't use it in the StudioX web interface. But then you can still use it, but maybe in Zoom or in Central or Google, just in any of the other video applications, and you're still able to use that auto restart if you want to. Alright, let me quickly show you where you can find this auto restart in the StudioX web interface. Alright, back into StudioX web interface. So where can you find that auto restart? So you go to General Settings, you go to System Settings, you go all the way down, and here you will find that Scheduled Auto Restart. You just enable this. You can put it to weekly and put in a day and a time, or you can set it to daily. And then you just put in a time. And this means it will restart the StudioX or G7500, and it will restart the paired TC8 or TC10. Alright, next great feature is the sound reflection reduction. So this was also already introduced in the previous version, but it has been improved in the 4.1.2, and it is now available for all providers. So what does it do? Well, if you got a lot of hard floors, glass, anything that reflects the audio, then it could lead to echoes in your meeting room, and it could really hurt the video conference session. So what we're trying to do here is digitally, we're trying to optimize that sound for the meeting room and try to get rid of those echoes. Now, of course, in a natural way, using acoustic panels, that will be the most optimal way for your meeting room, of course, because then you do it in a sort of natural way. So you just got to try it out. If you have a challenging meeting room, you cannot hear the audio correctly because there is a lot of echo, just try out the sound reflection reduction. I've even seen customers who just wanted to hear that echo of the room because they wanted to have that natural feeling. So it depends completely on your own situation or your own scenario, your own meeting room, and to just try it out and see if this works for your environment. Now, what is important is that the sound reflection reduction also includes the noise block AI. So even if you put it to the sound reflection reduction setting, you will get noise block AI with it. And the other way is that you can turn off everything. A lot of possibilities, as you can see. Now, what is also new with the 4.1.2 release is that it works with your extension mics. It works if you got a Trio C60 paired, so this is also a very nice one. And the sound effect reduction also works when you got a third-party DSP with your devices. So I think this is a really nice one. There's not much limitations anymore to use this functionality. Now, as usual, just let me show you quickly where you can find this feature on StudioX web interface. Now, back in the X52 web interface, so where can you find the sound reflection reduction? You go to the audio video section, you go to audio, and then you will find here the noise block AI options. By default, it could be that it's turned off, so you can turn it to noise block AI. That means blocking out unwanted noise in the room, like clapping or sandwich bags, etc., or coffee machine. That is a possibility. Now, if you want to go one step further, then it will eliminate also the echoes in the room, including the noise block AI. A really powerful feature. But as I said, try it out in your own meeting room. If you want to go completely natural and you want to hear the clapping during a Christmas event, etc., you just turn it off, and then all the audio will be going through the microphones. Another new feature which has been optimized with the 4.1.2 is the Director Parameter AI. I think a really great feature if you have glass walls. So you can enable the Parameter AI through the video settings through the local web interface or using PolyLens. And you can also provide feedback, because as it's still in a sort of preview feature, we're really looking for feedback of usage in customer environments. Now, what does it do? and the director parameter AI. So if you, for example, have those glass walls meeting rooms, it could always be that people are standing outside those meeting rooms and they're having a chip chat or a coffee like me. In those scenarios, you want to eliminate the glass as the final for your meeting room and make sure that you set the perimeter of your meeting room so it doesn't cover anybody who's outside your meeting room. Now you can do that through the parameter AI settings. So as soon as you enable this feature, which I will show you a bit in the web interface, you can set number A, that is the depth of the room, but you can also imagine if you got pictures on the wall at the end of the room, it will also not cover that. So if you put in the depth just after the table, it won't grab those pictures. Same for the sides. So if you put in the sides of the table, make sure you just cover the chairs, but not the walls. You can even do then the B, the width of the room. So let's say you got pictures here on the wall, you got pictures here on the back. You're able to eliminate those just to make sure you cover the room. And there's also a C, which is an exclusion zone. So if somebody's standing in front of the room and is presenting, you want to eliminate that of the tracking, you're able to do that. So you can set all those parameters in the web interface or in PolyLens. But let me show you that where you can find the setting. So back in the Studio X web interface, so where can you find the director AI parameter settings? You go to the sections audio, video, you go to video inputs, and you go all the way down. You find here enable director AI parameters. You enable that. Now you put in the measurements of the room in feet or in meters, and so the A, B, and the C for the exclusion zone. You go all the way down, you click on save, and then it should be active immediately for your meeting room. Next, let's look at the video applications included with the 4.1.2 release. And first we're going to check out the Teams application. And so what is embedded with the 4.1.2 release? Alright, so we got Teams app, and I usually use the last 4 digits, 1001, which is December release. Now, which is also included company portal 6061. Now, if you go to Teams Admin Center, you should be able to find now that software upgrade 4.1.2, which is available now. And as I said, it is included with those latest versions, company portal and the Teams app. Now, if you're going to install it, make sure you install it on both the Studio X and on the TC8 or TC10 to make sure that all the versions are aligned. And as you will see later on, some things have happened to make life a lot easier with upgrading those devices. Alright, let's look at the release notes. So what is included with those versions? But there's more, so watch out. And I will put those release notes, the reference to those release notes, I will put them in the comments so you have them available. Because we've included with the 4.1.2 release, we've included the 1001 release. Now, Microsoft meanwhile brought out a newer version, the 0801. So just to be aware of that. Now, what is inside those versions? And again, this is all available on the Microsoft website. So with the 1001, we have available the daily restart. So automatically after you installed it, the daily restart is enabled. Now, there's some fixes for Intune, which customers were aware, and there are some fixes for sign-out errors which we had, and also which were happening at customers. So it's really a recommended version to install. And again, this one is included with the 4.1.2 in combination with that newer company portal. That is important because that is the interoperability with Intune. Now, on top of that, we have now the 0801. And that is an APK and Teams application only. But it's recommended because it's taking care of some issues with the daily restart. So just to be aware of that, you can install on top of the release you already have. Now let's look at the versions in Teams Admin Center. So as soon as you hook up your device, it will automatically prompt you for a new version 4.12, and you won't see any Teams application because the 4.12 includes also that newer company portal, so just upgrade through the Teams Admin Center 4.12, and after you've done that, you will automatically see that there is an app-only installation, and that is the 0801. And it could even be that they're both showing up. And well, then I recommend to first upgrade to that 4.12, and then you upgrade to the final one, the 0801. Here you got a quick snap of an overview of those different versions. So if you have a 4.x version and you're moving to the 4.12, of course this is a green light, because you're going from 4.x to 4.12. And especially because of the fixes with Intune or sign-out issues. But check if you got those latest versions. So within Teams Admin Center, you can go to the details, and here you should be able to find your firmware 4.12. You should be able to find the company portal. That should be the 6061. Then you got your Teams app, which is first the 1001. And after you do that final update, you will end up with the 0801. And just to give you a snapshot, if you want to check if you received all the latest versions that are on there, well, here you got that snap to be able to identify that. Now, let's look at some of the new things included with the latest Teams application. And this one, I think, is really going to help. So as soon as you upgrade Studio X through a newer version in Teams Admin Center, it will now automatically also upgrade your parent TC8 and TC10. This one is really nice because I have identified so many issues with the TC8 or TC10, which was older than Studio X, which could already lead to all sort of compatibility issues. So make sure you upgrade the Studio X, and then it will automatically upgrade the TC8 and TC10. And you will find that under software update, paired devices, which will automatically be initiated after you upgrade the Studio X device. So another functionality included with the latest Teams application is the daily maintenance restart. You will find this under the admin settings under general, enabled by default. So at night you will get an auto restart daily. The same thing is happening with the MTR on Windows. So now we have it aligned with the MTR Windows and Android. They daily refresh the memory, restart the application, etc. And not only on Studio X, but it will also restart the attached paired device, TC8 or the TC10. Another new feature which has been added to the latest Teams application is the allow pairing without code. So you remember when you log in your Studio X, you log in your TC8 or TC10, then you pair them up, you find the device, you pair them up with this code, and then both devices are paired with each other. So now you just log in with your Studio X, with your account, you log in a TC8, TC10 with that account, and they will automatically pair with each other. That makes life, I think, for remote locations or where there's not much IT and you want to make it as easy as possible, then I think this is a very nice one. So you allow the pairing without the code. Now, and there's more to come in the upcoming versions. I saw some things on Ignite event where they announced the end-to-end encryption. They announced a new UI on the touch panel where you can get more events from the calendar. So you can also look at tomorrow events. So they're also working on that. There are some watermarks which are coming to Android, and the layout is going to be improved. So there are things coming probably at the beginning of 2024, but just watch out for new videos from Jan, and I should be able to bring you completely up to date with the latest and greatest. Now let's look at the use cases of the Poly TC10. I think this is a really nice one, but also some things which are good to know, specifically looking at versions. So you can use the TC10 as a control panel at a table, or you can use it as a scheduling panel at the entrance of the meeting room. And I did some videos on that earlier, which you're able to review if you're looking for more details on that. Now, specifically on the versions, I think that is important. Now, if you pair it up the TC10 with the Studio X, you're gonna be on version 4.x, which can be 4.12 or newer, just as long as you are staying aligned with the Studio X. Now, if you're gonna use the TC10 as a scheduling panel at the entrance of the room, be aware that you're going to be on version 5.x, and that automatically comes along with the device. If you go to the out-of-box wizard, it automatically will ask you to upgrade to 5.x. If you pair it up with the Studio X, it will automatically align with the Studio X version, and just to be aware of that. Now, if you're going to use it as a scheduling panel, as you see right here, then you're still going to be on version 5, and the touch panel, which is inside the room, is going to be on version 4, just to be aware. And probably at the end of the tunnel, all versions are going to be aligned, but for now, you're going to have version 5 scheduling panel, and version 4 to be compatible with Studio X is going to be on the control panel. Now, how do you switch between those two? Because that is possible, but you got to do that to a factory reset. Because if you do a factory reset, it will prompt you again with the out-of-box wizard, and that is to pair it up with a Studio X or to use it as a standalone scheduling panel. So that is, I think, a really nice one, and we'll give you some tips and tricks if you want to switch between the two. Now, how can you do a factory reset? Well, the first one is using the reset button. So if you go in the system settings underneath the device, you got there the option on the admin settings to reset the device, which will bring you back to that out-of-box wizard there. If you don't have access to those admin settings, you can always go into the pinhole. So underneath you got the pinhole, you just put in a pin, put in the power and the PoE, it will boot up and it will automatically factory reset the device, and it will bring you back to that out-of-box wizard. Now, what is new in the latest release? And I will probably do a separate video on more details, but just to give you the highlights. So first off, you've probably seen this crazy guy doing some updates on how the device is working. So if you want to review that, you can always look at his video. But meanwhile, there are some updates there. So in August, a QR code has been added. So that means when you walk up to a meeting room, you can scan the QR code with your mobile and you can schedule a new meeting or schedule with the current meeting. I think a really nice one. And now with the latest release, the 1003, you can turn it off remotely, the QR code, using the Teams Admin Center. Also, I think a really nice one. But as I said, I will probably do a separate video on that. So with the QR code, you walk up to the meeting room using your mobile, so you can schedule a new meeting or use of one of the current meetings within your schedule within the Teams application. Now, what is new? Well, this was already there, but I just wanted to show it because I really like this feature with the multicam support. So if you have an X50, X52, X70 or a G7500, you can connect multiple cameras. And you can bring those cameras up to 720p at the same time in the meeting. So as an end user, I can just pin one of those views that you want to see. A really nice one, up to 3 cameras at the same time, and that's the multi-camera mode. As I said, it was already there, but it's been enhanced with every version. And if you're using the devices in Zoom, I really recommend to try this out. So you can have one camera pointing at the total room, you can have one camera here pointing at the audience, you can have one camera pointing at the speaker, so you can find all sort of creative ideas for your bigger meeting rooms. The one which is also available is the Smart Gallery, and that is also now at 720p available. So that brings into one view, it brings 3 participants, the last 3 participants who were speaking. And the person who is speaking, they will get a sort of green bar around it. But that resolution has also been improved now to 720p and available also on X30, X50, X52, X70 and G7500. Now, looking more in the mixture with the Zoom room on Windows, so be aware, Zoom Room on Windows, Intelligent Director is now available. It's a public feature, and that means you can use 3 cameras and it's able to capture multiple participants in the room. But as I said, that is a Zoom Room on Windows. So now you can grab up to 16 participants with those 3 cameras. Resolution has been improved now with this latest release to 4K. So you really get a great shot of all the participants, where you normally look at a bowling gallery, where you just look into the room, and now as you can see, it's able to capture all the participants in the room with high resolution. But again, Zoom Room on Windows. Now, with the Studio X, there's also an option available which is sort of screensaver, sort of dim mode. So if you don't use it at night and you are in the white theme on the TC8 or TC10, you can enable now a sort of screensaver, sort of dim mode. So you can see that the screen automatically gets a sort of grayscale, and it doesn't give that bright light in the evening. Now, specifically on Zoom Room on Windows, for the Studio E70, there's a new version, the 1.8.2, and you probably need to use the PolyOS app to install the latest version on the E70. This will come along with speaker framing version 2, so you can use that now, which is named Speaker Focus on your Zoom Room touch panel if you want to use that. But if you then install that latest version on your E70, you got the next version of the speaker framing, and that means that the framing is a bit more relaxed. Usually it went specifically to a speaker in the room. Now if multiple people are sitting now together, it will try to frame out a little bit, so you have less reframing in those meeting rooms, and that seems to be much more relaxed for the remote participants. So this comes along now, but specifically, as I said, for the Zoom Room on Windows. Now, what's more on Zoom Room on Windows? We got presentation slide control. So you can control now when a presentation is shared, you can remotely control the presentation. We got official support now. Again, the Zoom Room on Windows for the 21:9 aspect ratio. So if you got those wider screens, that's officially supported now with the latest release, the 5.17. We got 4K support for the Smart Gallery and the Intelligent Director, as I said, specifically for the Zoom Room on Windows. And we have boundary frame for Smart Gallery and auto framing mode. So you can set boundaries now for those framing options. Really nice. This is part of that Zoom Room on Windows. And probably I will do more deep dives later on, but I just wanted to bring you up to date. Let's go to the next video application, and that is the Google Meet app. Because on the Google side, a lot of nice things are happening. So Studio X is natively running the Google Meet application, very unique. So you don't need to have any additional hardware or Chromebox. It's all built into the Studio X. Really nice. So for your small rooms, you're probably going to use an X30. For your medium rooms, you probably go for the X50, or if it is a newer room, I would probably get the X52 with the better camera. And if you have a larger room, you probably go for the X70. These are all supported with the Google Meet app. Now, what is new in the latest versions is now you can have dual screen. So with the X50, X52 or with the X70, you can enable now dual screen and get on the left side participants and on the right side get your presentation. A very nice one. And of course, TC8 and TC10 as a controller at the table. One other nice part is the BYOD, so the device mode is supported. As we know, it's supported with Teams, with Zoom, and with the other video applications. Now, the device mode is also supported with the Google Meet app. So if you need to break out WebEx, Teams or Zoom, you can always use that cable with your laptop and just reuse camera, speaker and mic in your meeting room. So that is officially supported now. In overall, there's a lot of updates there, but I just recommend to review the release notes. So you see on the Teams side, you get an overview on Zoom, on the Google Meet, and there's some updates on Ring Central, Tencent, mostly maintenance releases, but you can find this all in the release notes. Now, as a quick overview, and I also showed you that in the video, the software and the release notes is now available through PolyLens. This is a really important one. If you want to go directly to some documentation, go to docs.poly.com. Here you have a complete overview of the current release notes of the current version, but if you also look back in other release notes, you can find them on that portal. And here ends my coffee tech video for today on version 4.1.2. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you got any questions or comments, again, just put them under the video. I will try all the references that I've talked you through. I will also put them in the comments so you're able to find them quickly. And of course, I'm already looking forward to see you in the next video.